Hello, I'm Dean Allan and I'm here with a fellow author, Ian Sutherland. We're here as part of the Schreiner Karoo Writers Festival and we're here at the wonderful Victoria Manor in Craddock. Ian, welcome to Craddock and thank you for being part of the festival. What brings you here?
Well, thank you, Dean. It's great to be here. It's actually quite a long story, but this has been one hang of a year, as we all know, and we've just all been cooped up. And its writing process itself has taken quite a hit. So I decided that I needed a place to really just be able to focus, And I always fantasized about being in the Karoo, and I'm a small town guy, and I grew up in Paarl. And my wife and I talked about different options, and it's quite a serendipitous situation, because although I knew that Craddock was the home of Etienne van Heerden and many others, of course, of Schreiner, and it's got a great literary tradition. Etienne was actually my supervisor for my novel, Featherstream, and when I was doing it as part of the UCT MA in Creative Writing. And I actually didn't put two and two together, and we decided to come here. We met the Anthropos family online, and we are staying at the Tayshuis here, which has been fantastic, a little cottage. Turns out there was all these connections, and we ended up staying in the cottage that's called Etienne van Heerden. So it's a pretty good symmetry, and it's been fantastic. It's been just what we needed to get back on the writing horse. Yeah.
Well, as you know, writing is quite a solitary thing, so to have an environment like this is inspirational. There's so much history along this street and in this hotel as we speak. I mean, the part of the festival has grown over the years because of a celebration of literary greats in the area. We've got Guy Butler, of course, Etienne van Heerden, that we both know, Olive Schreiner. Let's hope it inspires us. So what are you busy with at the moment?
Yeah, actually nothing to do with the Karoo, funny enough. I love rugged landscapes and semi-desert and outdoors particularly. So I should be writing, but it's almost intimidating with people like Olive Schreiner behind you, Etienne, Guy Butler, and so on, the people you've mentioned. But it's inspiring. It's inspiring to know that this landscape was inspirational to them, and they were able to, they liked it and they found solace here, and so that I do take some comfort and encouragement from that. But what I'm writing at the moment, or have been on and off for the last few years, because I've been, I was publishing the book and work and all sorts of things, family. It's been a sort of a stop-start process, but for 4 or 5 years now I've been working on this novel set in Chernobyl in the Ukraine. So long way from here, but because I do historical novels, this is slightly, the previous one was Second World War, this is Cold War. Because I'm a mechanical engineer, I thought, from originally that's what I studied, and I had a fascination with that accident, with the nuclear accident in '86, and ever since I've been, reading up on articles and what happened and the consequences and the influence it had on the outcome of the Cold War and so on. And so that's what I'm trying to nail it and finish it.
Good. Well, let's hope this environment, a long way from Chernobyl, of course, but let's hope this environment inspires you. I believe you actually visited the area as well. Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, I've visited it twice actually. The first time was we did a trip sort of right down through Russia and then ended up in the Ukraine and spent time and actually did the tour, of the abandoned city of Pripyat, which features a lot of those sort of horror movies and things like that, sort of dystopian future. It's an abandoned city, as you know, where 40,000 people just had to leave overnight, and because of this accident. And so you now can do a tour, and it's pretty weird. So you go in a combi and you go and drive around, and of course, being a writer and a researcher, I just sort of kept disappearing and really annoyed my tour guides, because I would just disappear and wander off and try and get a feel of the place. And then I spent a couple of weeks later. I came back a couple of years ago later and spent 2 weeks in Kiev, which is the capital, and I was there at that stage. I started learning Russian because I wanted to kind of really understand. I just believe that the language influences character, and thinking. So I wanted to understand, I'll probably never be fluent, but to understand how people think and how they would talk and how they would write in the language. So that's what I've been doing, and I did some language studies there in my second trip.
Well, it's quite admirable. I mean, you talk about having a feel of the place. I understand that. I mean, 20 years ago, I first stepped foot into Mikey's Fontaine and experienced the Karoo for the first time. And you kind of immerse yourself in the area, and you want to know more about it, don't you? So I believe whether you write fiction or non-fiction, certainly in terms of a historical viewpoint, it's important to immerse yourself in that. We were talking earlier actually about the difference between perhaps our two styles. Now, I'm a historian. I came from the classic academic route where the book Empire, War and Cricket came from a PhD, which had its own challenges, of course, but everything had to be checked and verified. How is it different writing historical fiction? I mean, there's similar traits, and you are a historian in the same way that I am, but what kind of creative license do you get perhaps that I don't? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about that actually. It's a very good question. I don't have the answer, but the way I do it, I don't think there's any right or wrong. You know, I think you can have as much creative license as you like. Personally, because I've got a love of history like you, I'm not as qualified, but I have studied some of it, and I've just been an amateur historian my whole life. That's the lens I look at life. When I travel, it's always through the historical lens. So I have a great passion and a respect for history. So my objective is to be the context to be as historically accurate as possible. So I do everything to get it 100%. You're never 100%, but so I like to think of myself as stewing in the environment, in the age. So like I'll read up, I'll obviously read, but I'll watch videos, I'll talk to people, all those things, and try and spend time in there. Online now we've got a lot of access to a huge amount of research, but yeah, so I try and pickle myself in that, or stew in that environment, and get as much as possible of the context. Story, of course, the kind of fiction I write have at this up to now has been fictional. So the characters, what happened to them is entirely fiction, but plausible. So yeah, and I don't really refer to historical people, characters other than as context. Look, I might change, but that's just the sort of style, and I try not to give a history lesson, so it's not sort of facts and figures. And of course that's frustrating because you spend all this time researching and all these facts and figures, and you really want to kind of show off. That's human nature, I suppose. The teacher in me wants to kind of teach people, but that's not what I'm about. I'm doing it as a story, and then just make sure that the context right.
Okay. Just tell us a little bit about your journey to become an author, because you're a very busy man. You've got obviously interest in business, and you've got other things that take care of your time. And that's why I admired you coming out here to Craddock to actually create this space in which to write. You've made me, you certainly set an example for me across the road. You've been industrious most days writing. How did you get to this point where you knew you wanted to be a writer, and how do you balance that with, can we say, the real world as well?
That's my burning question. Yeah, it's one I struggle with every day and have done for many years. I came to it rather late, I suppose. I mean, I loved reading and all that. I was a literary guy, but I kind of got sucked into the engineering business. In fact, it was a family thing, fathers and so on did engineering, and so I was good at maths and science as well, so I thought, that was just, I ended up doing mechanical engineering, and being in the sort of business world after that, doing an MBA studies and sort of getting into the business side of things and the financial side. And I don't regret it. I've learned a lot about real life, to understand how people actually operate, or what the struggles of real normal people are. I think writers often get into this, they're just mixed with writers, and they just talk about their own problems and so on, and they don't really perhaps understand what the average person goes through. So I don't regret it, but it started gradually. So I started writing short stories, actually for my children, and then started writing short stories, and just started taking it more and more seriously. The passion sort of grew over the years. It wasn't just a blinding light. So. And I've structured my working life so now that I have a good chunk of the day to also focus on writing. So that happened about 5-6 years ago.
Okay. And you have an understanding partner. I know Melissa supports you in what you do as well, because it is a lonely business. You have to you have to be disciplined and set time aside as well, don't you?
Yeah, the discipline, it's, you know, you're right, it doesn't matter how much other stuff's going on in your life, it's always hard. And I sort of think of the analogy of I'm walking through a jungle and I've got a machete in one hand, another one, and probably another one behind me, and I'm just fast-growing tropical jungle, and I'm just cutting away through, and I've got this path, and I'm batting everything, you know, social engagements, and this and that, and work, and admin, and taxes, and then you create this space, right? And then you have to deal with yourself. Your own discipline, and your own lack of discipline, and your own temptations and distractions, and so you just clear that, and then you've got to look after you've got to try and yourself get into it. So yeah, there's sacrifice. One thing I've learned is this sacrifice, and that's not great, but the reward for me is it's definitely worth it. What I get out of the process of writing, and just the joy I give people when they read it and give me good feedback. Or even not necessarily that they agree with it, or you know, even if it's criticism sometimes, it's nice when people engage, you know, and that makes it all worthwhile.
Well, I think what you said, you've given a lot of people a lot of joy over the years, and we're looking forward to what's coming next. And it's a pity that you can't be with us physically for the festival, but I understand that next year you've got plans to be here as well.
Yeah, it's a great pity actually, because it's been one of those years where I don't think anyone's really planned for anything successfully, and the festival shifted around, and so as it happens, I have to be back in Cape Town next week, and but certainly half a chance I will be back, and because I love the place now, and I have roots in the Eastern Cape. I was actually born here, so I would give my left arm literally to sort of be back and spend a bit of time here again, and just soak up the atmosphere and be in a festival. And I hope it's a normal one. You know, I hope people can just mingle and shake hands and hug and do all the things that humans should do.
Well, of course. I mean, but this is the beauty of this. We've managed to present this short chat virtually today. So I mean, it's great that you're part of that, Ian. Now, how can people get in touch with you and follow what you're doing?
Well, thanks, Dean. Yeah, I think a number of ways. I'm on social media, sort of Facebook, Instagram. Authorian is my handle on Instagram. Somebody pointed out. And Facebook, and also have a website, so I've got iansutherland.co. That's probably the best way. The old details are there.
Okay.
And the books are, I think, the Feather Stream's still in some of the, in many of the the bookshops around in the cities mainly, because it's now a couple of years since it was out.
It's still doing well, Feather Stream, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still going.
Yeah, which is nice.
Still got some legs.
Do you still get that buzz when you see your book on the bookshelf?
I tell you what, that first time, somebody asked me like, when do you think you're a writer? And I still don't know, But I know that when I saw it in Exclusive Books sitting there and in Cavendish, which is my local, and I walked in there that night and I saw it there, that was just a special time.
No, let's hope that feeling continues. I feel the same as well. But thank you so much for your time. And welcome back to Craddock in the near future, hopefully.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dean, and you've been very welcoming, and thank you for good luck with your writing. And,
pleasure.
I know you were busy with something as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing when that comes out.
No, all the best. Thank you. Thank you very much.